So now we will turn to Kyle McManamy from Duke Divinity School. He is the Director of Strategic Projects and is going to talk about accelerating faith and entrepreneurship through investing in cultural leaders. Kyle, welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. Just thumbs up. You can hear me? All good? Okay. Two thumbs up. Even better. Well, Corey, thank you. And Brett, thanks for the invitation to join this gathering. The work you're doing at Life continues to remind us that should God surprise us with a fresh work in an unlikely place, we should not doubt. We should just do our best to keep up with the pace that God sets. And other than this confidence that we should expect surprises from a God who is making all things new in Jesus, the best things I can share with you are a trend I'm seeing here at Duke and beyond, and an approach we're testing. So, real briefly, I'm going to talk about the trend, and then as I shift into the approach we're testing, I'll share some slides. Um, so I have become convinced this year more than the two or three prior combined that now is the moment for institutions like ours to step into action. I was talking with somebody recently and he said, universities don't need to do another 2 or 3 year study. We have 2,000 years of research as the church has been the church in a ton of different contexts. We've got to move. Um, very rapidly, we're finding broad cultural acceptance in the tenuousness of our world's flourishing. We need right now to introduce new approaches that face today's challenges, and technology and technique alone are insufficient to respond to these. The way we've always done things can't be the way we keep doing them. I've been shocked at the readiness of students and professionals and professors, university administrators, and donors to consider new approaches to the world's problems. And this is where we face a challenge. In recent conversations like the one I just mentioned, I keep finding the same objection that all of us are going to face as people working within a university context. Here's what it is. The needs are urgent, but is the university the place that we should look to respond to it? Universities can be so slow, so bogged down with internal politics that the speed required in the response to today's ills might be too fast for academia. So this is recent conversations with a wealth manager, a Fortune 500 company leader, a surgeon, a tech CEO. They've all echoed the same thing. And what they are looking for and long to see is not just Silicon Valley hustle, though they're hoping that they see that. They also want to see the depth and the richness and the tradition of higher education mobilized rapidly in response in proactive ways. We may need fresh wineskins, but we still need the tradition of wineskin making to show us how to make them. And so let me say this. This is the pointed, tangible conclusion of this trend. The donor dollars, the student enrollment, and the cultural impact will go to the places that tap into the tradition of the university with like entrepreneurs launching a startup. If we want to impact entrepreneurs and the field of entrepreneurship, we need to approach it entrepreneurially. A tree is known by its fruits, but we need to do it Christianly, drawing from our own roots in ways that bear fruit that bring fresh nourishment for today. And so this is what we're exploring, and I want to share a few slides to give you just a little bit of picture there. So here we go. All right. Okay, so the broad title of what we're going to be looking at is accelerating faith and entrepreneurship. But let me narrow that real briefly into something that we're doing, and we're calling the Tradition to Innovation Project, because we need to tap into tradition and we need to go into innovation. As you probably know, Greg Jones, our plenary opening speaker, he was the dean here at Duke's Divinity School, and this project and this concept of tradition to innovation is something that he came up with. He's kind of like the Christian innovation Johnny Appleseed. He just kind of goes all over the place and throws these seeds of ideas and inspiration, and a lot of things pop up. And this is one of those, and we've continued to cultivate it and explore where it goes. So let me just give you a brief overview of it, and then I'll share strategies and insights from the work that we've been able to do. Um, First, the project didn't focus primarily on traditional students. but who we might consider lifelong learners or professors of the practice. In brief, we asked how Christians who are leading in culture-shaping institutions right now and across sectors can be resourced by their tradition or by their traditions to face our challenges, but do so innovatively. In pursuing this question, we gathered stories and case studies. We had salons to foster local networks. We created curriculum. We assembled an advisory council of really impressive leaders. And as we analyzed what we were seeing from all this engagement, we noticed that the kind of leaders we're trying to serve are expressing similar cross pressures. I'll name four. We saw a few more, but I'll just name these. They are highly visible. These leaders are highly visible and easily scrutinized. They have been leading in a high pressure environment for a long time and they can't slow down. They are facing scenarios where they both need to stabilize their organizations and simultaneously transform them, and they feel alone. A number of them also mentioned that there's a big faith and work disconnect that they're experiencing right now. So after gathering these findings and running some design sprints, we realized that the best way to serve these institutional leaders is to get them together in person for what we've been calling our executive accelerators. These gatherings, they only last 2 days, but they have been the most effective thing we've done so far. And through this and though the specific project is wrapping up, I want to share some of the strategies that we're employing and a few of these insights. We're going to keep this project going. It's been so successful. So as you're thinking about your context and how you may include these lifelong learners, these icons of the practice right now, you might want to build something else, but here are some things that we found to be successful. First, and here are just three things, kind of three themes of flavor that we put into the recipe of these accelerators. First, we've got to leave room for the existential questions that our leaders are facing. These leaders are people who are expected to have answers to all sorts of things that pop up, but the human call that all of us have is to never stop pursuing life's biggest questions. If we do not design resources for for these leaders with this kind of room, we are partnering with the culture to tell them that they are not humans. They're just output machines giving a product to our capitalist mechanism that's keeping business running and keeping them unrested and stressed. So one of the things that we've brought in and that they have been surprised and thankful for is room for big existential questions where they can just have questions. They can search for the answers together. The second is that they'll workshop in wisdom. So as the leaders come together, they are all facing the kind of wicked challenges that they can't fully be prepared for by doing case study hypotheses and even their other experience. They're never trained for some of the challenges that we're facing. But also, they're supposed to be people with answers. And so they don't really have the freedom to be unsure about how they're going to pursue it with their boards or with their C-suite or whatever. And so, what these gatherings do is they give them some room to talk about their solutions and progress, as it were. And that has been incredibly helpful. Also, they're around the kind of leaders who are peers whose wisdom they would seek out anyway. And we just gather them together for them. And lastly, we've opened the skylights because no one graduates from the longing for transcendence. Often these leaders come and they're not in context where it would be celebrated or even welcomed for them to include that in their process, but it is vital and they need it and it's super refreshing. And so as you may think about ways you might translate, you might do this kind of thing, or maybe you're going to do it for graduate students or even upper level undergraduate students. Here are three things that are insights from our experience that you can maybe translate into your own context. So first, the cohort is the kiln. The way to bring lasting change is community, but community small enough that people can actually be known and know each other and be vulnerable about the stories that they have had and they are experiencing right now. So cohort is the model for personal change, and it's also a good balance on our community, our society's individualism, because it reinforces the need for community, even for individuals to change. So that's the first thing, cohorts, cohorts, cohorts. Second, if you do gatherings that are focused on change and really making connections, obsess over the tempo. Um, this is not as a university, we think that what the world needs is for me to open my mouth. That is not it. What leaders today need is to open theirs, to listen, to be both engaged so that the time feels productive because their time is precious, but also spacious so that they can take a breath. And so obsess over the tempo, obsess over those details. I'd recommend the book The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. Probably a lot of you reference that. That is a guiding resource for the way we think about gathering. Lastly, count your blessings. And this was a surprise that we got just this fall. We brought in another group of leaders, and they kept saying, "We can't believe all this stuff that you have here that's just here. It's so great to be immersed in what it is to be here at Duke University." And I realized how blind we had been to the resources that we take for granted that were right next door. So all of our universities have different things, different strengths. Take an inventory, an asset map of what you have already, and see that from the outsider's perspective on how wonderful and refreshing it could be for someone from the outside to come and experience that, even just for a taste. So those are just a few quick things. I'll tell you that it has been so welcomed by institutional leaders, and these are, deans and VPs and all sorts of stuff from small business owners from all around the country, that we're going to continue this. And we think that what we're pursuing is making a lasting impact on people who have an outsized impact on our culture. I'm happy to take a few questions if there are any, and if there are not, I'll give you a few extra minutes back.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Sure.
One of the questions that came in, someone was really interested in the idea of encouraging folk to long for transcendence. And
Mm,
prior to getting people in the cohort, how do you encourage somebody um, to just say, "Hey, this is a fundamental human need, and you're allowed to feel it"?
sure. Well, I have a longer answer, which we don't have time for, but I have a shorter, just kind of bullet point response. One is we started our morning with morning prayer, and we brought in a theologian in residence from the Divinity School who went along with these leaders. But that was transformative, and that really showed that they can build this into practice. I'd recommend. I see Denise Daniels is on our call. I'd recommend her book, which I might be blurring out, but Working in the Presence of God thinks about Christian practices integrated into the workplace for people whose vocation is in the workplace outside of a church context. Lastly, I'll tell a story about um, someone who is a graduate of the Divinity School who is now up in DC working on public policy for veteran affairs. He's also a neurologist. And one of the practices he incorporated into his clinical work is before as doctors, you have to wash your hands before you go see a patient. And he would turn that into a liturgy and a prayer. And so he would say, "Lord, please help me," as he's washing his hands, "please help me touch this person or engage this body as if I was engaging the body of Christ, of Jesus. Maybe may I care for this person like I would care for Jesus." So thinking about practices, that's actually a wealth of we can draw from our tradition and innovate into present context.
I love that. And then one more question Rodney asks, what's the largest size for your cohort?
Oh, Rodney, that you were asking an insightful question there. I would say we do a 48-hour experience, and so our max is eight leaders that we bring in. If we were doing a longer version, I would say the cohorts can be 9 to 15, having led multiple cohort programs in the past. Once you get past 15, the extroverts take over, the introverts hide behind them, and not everyone shares their story and gets changed by the stories of the other people. So 9 to 15 is about right for a longer journey.
Wonderful. Kyle, thank you so much.